What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Fiery Fridays. We missed last week. I was away, but we're back this week. It is currently we're one game off the NBA Finals, potentially three games. The series score of the Miami Heat is 3-1 Miami's way. We're heading to Boston tomorrow morning. So for some listeners, it'll be after game 5. We haven't seen the results yet. So some of these questions do kind of fall on that game. So if you're listening to this and we make a bad prediction, then give us a little bit of slack. The Nuggets have just swept the LA Lakers by surprise, in my opinion. I thought LA would at least get one. A lot of people had LA winning, so we'll touch on that a little bit, which will lead. First of all, how are you going?
Yeah, good. Been an interesting playoffs. Like you said, pretty shocking that the Lakers got swept. You'd expect them to get one. Yeah, I suppose you go back a few weeks when you said the Nuggets would get the Suns. They got the Suns. Looking at that now, Suns say sit a bit high. They go against Golden State. I mean, you'd probably take. I mean, if you just took it on face value, they lost to the Lakers and Suns got more games on the Nuggets, etc. Makes it interesting to think what it would have been like in the Western Conference Finals, maybe with Nuggets Denver, maybe the same result. But yeah, like pretty shocking, but good to see the Nuggets through. As soon as they beat the Suns, confident that they were going all the way. Still think they are, no matter what. I think they're the best team in the league by far. But yeah, it's been good. Tomorrow will be interesting as well.
Very interesting. I think Denver deserve it out of the West. I think they've been the highest performing team so far, which kind of leads into my next question after the Western Conference Finals. The first question of this week's Fiery Fridays. Is it time for LeBron to hang him up? Now, after they lost, there's been a bit of speculation. I know he went into the press conference and says he has to have a think about it. There's reporters coming out saying that it could be over. It could most definitely be over. Should LeBron hang the boots up? Yes or no, and why?
What's to go with his contract, firstly? Isn't he's on for another 2 years?
Yeah, I think
So
he's
it's
signed on for
just
2 years.
he's just what happens? He just doesn't get paid for that.
I think if you retire, I'm not sure.
I
Maybe your
think I'm
contract
pretty sure
extends.
they'd just tear it up.
Yeah,
Um, should he? No, I don't reckon he. I don't think he should, and I don't think he will. Like he's still playing really good basketball. Even playoffs. I think maybe as he gets a bit older, like you see him settling for threes a bit more. I think that's kind of good. Maybe he just needs to tamper with that a bit. But overall, like you'd still take him on any team. There's not many teams that have a player even close to him. He's right. I think he came out and said, I'm better than 95% of the NBA. Like he's correct. The best 100 players, he's probably in the top or yeah, I mean, he's still probably in your top 5 no matter what. Yeah, just unlucky. I think it was disappointing that they got swept. Like they've gone against a good team, but you always expect, great players to get one. And I think it was a little bit of like, not like dummy spitting after, but I think it was just hitting him real heavy then straight after the game. Now I think he'll reset. He's got his son coming in the league. He'll be there for at least another year. I'd say, and if he's going to do another year, I think Bronny gets drafted next year.
yeah, year or year after. He gets
He'll
to play
play with
6 years,
he'll
and
play
then
with him one season,
yeah,
I reckon. Yeah, he's doing fine.
I think he's going to go until he slows down, and that means like 20 20 to 15 points per game. I think he might go for another 3 or 4. And a lot of people say that, yeah, he's saying this, but I think that happens after any time you lose. I think you come out and be like, I'm never playing again. I'm doing all this, that, this, that. But to get swept in a finals, in a Western Conference Finals like that, it's tough. So I think it was, heat of the moment sort of talking from LeBron. I don't think he actually means any of it. A lot of people are saying this is the first year we've seen age catch up to LeBron. I don't think so. I just think it shows that there's a lot more that goes into winning than your main player. Denver have a great squad. They've got a great coach. They've got depth. Reggie Jackson, Thomas Bryant, I say it every week, but they don't even get minutes on that team. And I'm pretty certain that they'd maybe both start on that Lakers team. And the
Yeah,
fact that they're not scraping minutes on that Nuggets team says a lot. They've got the 2-time MVP, should have been 3-time. He's just won Western Conference Finals MVP, and they're looking like, at the moment, they're going to win the NBA Finals, and he was potentially Finals MVP, Jokic. So I mean, Lakers were the seventh seed. They had a rough regular season. They were 2-10 off the rip. They came back. They had a big trade deadline where they had Russell Westbrook and a whole completely different team, and they switched it up. And to get to where they were, even shocked me. So they did get swept, but it's tough. I mean, you look back at LeBron and what he did on the Heat. Obviously, it's historical, but he had Chris Bosh, who's a Hall of Famer. He had Dwayne Wade, who, won his own ring with Shaq back on the Miami Heat. And then he had Eric Spoelstra as the head coach, who, you see what he's doing with this Heat team and the Heat team back in the bubble. He's not just your regular coach. He's one of the all-time greats. So I just think there's a lot more to it than LeBron performing and, not being the GOAT that he is. So I think he's got a lot more in him. Regular season this year, he averaged 29, 8, and 7. And in the playoffs, he averaged 25, 9, and 6. And in the very last game in a do or die, yes, they were down 3-0, but he had 48 and 9.
Something
Like
like
that,
that.
no one's doing that. There's a select few players that are doing that, sorry. But yeah, I still think he's got a lot left in the tank. And if you're still doing it, why not get paid? You're getting 20, 25 million a year, why not? So we'll see.
Looking
I don't think it's up for him.
looking back at the D'Lo Russell Westbrook trade, I mean, D'Lo's coming off the bench and you do or die game, not performing in the playoffs. Does that look like a bad trade in hindsight?
Um, I'm not sure. I think Vando, D'Lo, and all those sort of players really stepped up, especially Rui, sort of stepped
Yeah.
up these playoffs. Austin Reeves got a bigger role as well. So it's a whole new roster. Vanderbilt played all right during the early games, but I don't know. I didn't like Darvin Ham's rotations in the last game. Vando, I don't think stepped on the court. D'Angelo Russell got limited minutes, and it was garbage time at the end of each quarter. So it looks like he didn't drop many points, but he didn't really get the opportunity. I think if you're on the back foot, you've got to put firepower on there. And if he doesn't perform, he doesn't perform and you lose. But he's meant to be a top three player, an offensive player on your team for a reason. So if he doesn't step up, he doesn't step up. But I don't think you switch everything and throw on Tristan Thompson for 30 minutes, who hasn't played a single second this whole season. I know you got to throw something different at Jokic, you got to, but I think you got to put D'Lo out there when it's do or die.
Yeah.
I think that's a given. So I didn't like that. Dennis Schroeder performed pretty well, but yeah, I'm not going to say it. I think they did it for the better. I think they got better after it. Their regular season record got better,
Yeah.
and they definitely outperformed what I thought they would have at the postseason. All right, second question. We're looking at the NBA lottery that happened last week while we didn't post an episode. The San Antonio Spurs have secured the first pick. I know you wanted them to get the first pick the most, so that was a
Yeah.
good pick. Let's talk about the NBA lottery results. I don't know if you have them up, but I'll start. Houston Rockets not getting a top three pick was a big one for me. I think they're in the biggest struggle street for me to have no offense. I know they brought in Ime Udoka, which is a very good signing for them. But I just feel like they really needed Miller, Scoot, or Wemby. I think the draft kind of falls off. A lot of people have mixed opinions about this draft. A lot of people think that it's a very stacked draft. I'm not a massive fan of it compared to the last couple. Obviously, Wembanyama and Scoot and Brendan Miller are very, very good players. But yeah, so there's a few players down the sort of board that intrigue me. But sort of looking at the thing, Charlotte Hornets, I'm happy with they've got the second pick, but Charlotte and Portland at the 2 and 3 is a very awkward position for both teams, in my opinion. I thought they both need the number one pick. Or it's kind of, I think they're both in the sort of, do we trade this pick now? Charlotte having the second pick, do they take Scoot and pair him with LaMelo? Can LaMelo move to the 3, considering he's 6'7", 6'8", and Scoot move to the 1, even though Scoot's more of a, slashing guard? Can LaMelo defend at the 2 and guard your 2 and 3s? It's a very awkward sort of thing. And if they want to go in the direction of Brendan Miller, which a lot of mock drafts have them taking now because of the position they're in, they want to bring back Miles Bridges. They've got Gordon Hayward. They've got Oubre. They've got Cody Martin. It's just they've got a lot of forwards, and it's a sticky situation. Brendan Miller is obviously high up there. Then there's people that just say, just draft the best player on the board. Don't worry about what you've got. Draft him. Do they go after someone like Bradley Beal, bring Bridges back, try and sign a center, and go for a dark horse in the East? I'm not too sure. but they definitely will have some trade value with the young pieces they have in the second pick. Do they take Scoot? It's tough. I think Lamelo has to be your one guard.
Yeah.
Portland with the third pick is a tough one as well because if Scoot goes, I think Brandon Miller's a pretty good choice. But if Scoot doesn't go, then you've got Lillard at your one, and you've got Simons at your two. Like, does Scoot come off the bench, or do you look down the board and let Scoot drop? I don't think that's likely to happen. So both teams are a little bit in a sticky situation. Um, I do think Charlotte might take Brandon Miller, and then Portland's going to be in a little bit of a sticky situation. I think this could be the year we see Dame off, and it will be maybe an on the night sort of draft trade. I'm just sort of scared that if Charlotte take Brandon Miller, Portland won't be expecting it, and then they're kind of going to be they'll have that 5 minute window where do we trade? Where do we trade? And they might just take Scoot, and then they're going to have to look for something for Lillard in the offseason. But other than that, Pistons obviously fell to fifth. They were meant to be first, second, or third. Not too bad for them. I still like their roster either way. I think they're going to get someone nice at the five. I think they sort of need anyone off the bench. It's not that big of a deal. So I don't mind them falling. Orlando Magic, yeah, another team, young team that has kind of everything. They don't really need, they could have used Wemby obviously instead of Wendell Carter, but I don't think it affects them too much. And then my Wizards went to eighth. They were meant to get eighth. Not a great spot for us. Hopefully we get Anthony Black. I think he's a 6'7" point guard. People are saying he's the giddy with athleticism and defense. So that's a big shock, but
Yeah.
and it's a big role to overcome. So I like the draft. Obviously the what was I going to say? The Mavericks, I think, kept their pick because they stayed in the 10. If it dropped out of the 10, it was someone else's or something like that. So the Mavericks were lucky, especially with the season they had. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the NBA lottery. Do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think the Spurs desperately needed it. They've got it and they've pretty much just come out straight away and said, taking him. I think Hornets 100% take Miller. He's a small forward, power forward, isn't he?
Yeah.
Slash power forward. Yeah, they're taking him for sure. I guarantee it. You're right. He's like it's like this reminds me so much of like a Luka Doncic on the Mavericks situation where your point guards, a tall point guard who can, could play the 2 or 3, but you need to have them running the offense and stuff. They're not going to mess that up and draft Scoot there, which then puts pressure on Portland. I don't know if can you play 2 point guards? Like I think he's pretty short, 6'2" or something.
Yeah, he's pretty short.
Pretty short. So then I don't know, do they maybe go a little bit in the season just waiting for someone to give an offer for Lillard? But I'm sure there'll be plenty of teams out there chasing him. But yeah, a bit of a shame for Rockets. But like at the same time, who do they take then? Say if they got third, they're just with another guard. And they're already pretty guard loaded there. But yeah, I don't think when you look at Hayward, you're going, who cares? Well, if we have to, whatever we have to do with him. You look at Bridges, hasn't played in a year, obviously got in some trouble. So I think they're just looking at this going, we got LaMelo. Now we want to pair him with a good forward that we can, go into the future with. And we're not going to ruin, his LaMelo's growth by bringing in another guard.
Yeah. And I know you like wings. So
big time in the playoffs.
Top three wing is pretty big. And he's a defensive guy.
Yeah.
Great offense as well. He's definitely a confident player as well. So I like Brandon Miller.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Question number 3. The game's tomorrow. Can the Boston Celtics bring it back from 3-1?
I don't think they can. I think Heat have played, well, obviously they played better 3 out of 4 of the games, but I think I saw a lot more in the Heat's wins than I did the Celtics. I think they were going, there was about 2 minutes left in the third and it was like a 3-point game or something. And then Celtics kind of pushed it to 11 just before that fourth quarter. And then I think they came out and they just put like a quick 6 points on it and bang, the lead was to 17. And then it was kind of just a battle back and forth. When I look back and watch look at the earlier games when they were tight the whole time and it was a real battle, Heat seemed to come out on top. So I think tomorrow, I know Boston are back home, but we saw it didn't really matter in the first 2 games. I think tomorrow, I reckon they'll actually get it done tomorrow. And if not, obviously game 6, but I'm actually expecting them to get it done tomorrow again, just I think that they'll like Eric Spoelstra is just a freak of a coach. They'll be able to go back to the drawing board, see exactly what went wrong, etc. Have a few more plays step up. I think Duncan Robinson, you went from 22 the game before to almost zero or something, or something small, like just a good player off the bench who does that for you. It's not going to happen every game. Bam didn't play that well. Jimmy was probably the only good player, and we see that this Heat team, they go a lot better when everyone's playing good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm expecting them to get it done tomorrow. I just think whether they're the better team on paper or not, they are playing better basketball at the moment. And yeah, game 5 I'm expecting, but if not game 6, I don't think it goes to 7 at all.
Yeah. This series has been interesting. Definitely the biggest shock and probably my worst prediction up to this point. I thought this would be over pretty quickly. I think Boston, depth-wise, are the much better team. I think anyone can agree with that. I know the Heat are absolutely schooling them in these first couple games, especially the first 3, especially the third one. Boston Celtics looked down and out. I think the Heat were up 30 for almost 3/4 of the game.
Yeah.
It was very ugly. I didn't watch much of it. But the first 2 games were predominantly close. I feel like this series has been a series of runs.
Big time.
There's a lot of 10-0 runs. You look back on it's 12-2 run by Boston, 15-2 run by Miami. So both teams are just get on their runs, and it's it hits the second and third quarter, and one team just extends one of those runs, and it kind of solidifies the game, even if someone tries to bring it back. So tomorrow it's in Boston. I think Boston will win, and I think it'll be quite a confident win. But then that game 6 in Miami, like Charles Barkley said, I know Charles doesn't like to predict much, but that game 6 in Miami will be a massive game for Miami. If they don't get it done tomorrow, it'll head back to Miami, and Miami will be playing their best basketball. And if Boston can somehow beat them through that and go to game 7, I think they'll be the first team to ever come back from 3-0. I'm only saying that because Boston, in my opinion, have the best roster in the league, and they're coming up against an 8 seed. But right now, Miami Heat are out hustling them. They're out harding them. They're out shooting them. And Jimmy Butler is leading them very well. Joe Mazzulla's coaching and rotations have been a little bit iffy as well, that I've noticed. I feel like he's panicking when they go down 10, 12, and he's putting on different rotations that don't really suit each other. He's using Grant Williams a lot. I know Grant stepped up last game. But yeah, it's a lot changing compared to what they're used to running. So Jaylen Brown is very underwhelming this series. He has been playing out of his skin all playoffs, and this series, I don't know whether it's the defensive schemes. I don't know what they're throwing at him, but he's not really stepping up to the plate. Brogdon had a bit of a shocker last game in the win as well. So it's interesting. Obviously, if I had to put my money on it, I'd probably say Heat, with them being up 3-0, now 3-1, to win 1 out of the next 3. But I do think the Boston Celtics can do it. And I would not be surprised if they are the first team to ever come back from 3-0. A Boston Nuggets series, in my opinion, would be more entertaining than a Nuggets Heat series as well.
I agree, but it's weird how that works. Hey, when you see, so say if Heat win tomorrow 4-1, somehow it seems more entertaining that Celtics would make it through, even though it makes 0 sense. Yeah. I don't know why. I get what you mean though.
It's just different teams and different matchups, I think.
Yeah.
Obviously the Heat match up with Boston very well. And it's like, Suns might absolutely blow through Golden State and their path through, but they had to go up against the Nuggets. And the Nuggets just match up with them nicely.
Yeah.
So it's weird. Bucks could be versing Heat right now if they verse the Celtics. We never know.
Yeah. Does Horford get torched though by Jokic?
Yeah, that's the thing that kind of, I think the Heat match up with Nuggets pretty nicely. You've got
Bam's a very good defender.
You've got Bam guarding Jokic, you've got Jimmy guarding Murray, and then the rest are kind of wing defenders against wing defenders and wing shooters against wing shooters. You got Mike Malone versus Spoelstra. You've got the Jokic beef with the Miami Heat players, and the brothers didn't like the Miami players last time. I think it's a good matchup. But at the same time, the Celtics, Rob Williams and now Horford are going to have to guard Jokic. It's a bit of a tough one. We saw Durant and Booker, which is kind of like similar to Tatum and Brown, get kind of clamped by Bruce Brown, KCP, and BJ. Not clamped, sorry. Booker dropped 35, and KD had a few good games. Like Booker was playing the best player out of this whole playoffs. He didn't get clamped, but I felt they were very limited to what they would do, and they weren't winning games. They were scoring a lot of points, but they weren't, making winning plays. So they weren't getting
Does
clamped, but they shut them down a little bit.
I don't know. I feel like Boston's defense is very underwhelming. Like they don't seem like they can defend that well.
Yeah,
They've got all the offensive firepower in the world, but I think like when you look at the Nuggets team, I think they're a much better defensive side. I thought the Nuggets would struggle playing defense in the playoffs, but they added KCP, who I think's been huge. Bruce Brown, good defender.
yeah,
When you look back at the Celtics now, like you just watching it, they get a switch and like you just see them, they're a bit lost out there. I don't know what it is. I feel like that's what's really let them down
yeah,
this playoffs, the Celtics. And like the Heat are putting big margins on them. You
yeah,
don't see that very often.
yeah. I think there's just a lot of things that kind of make me scratch my head. Like Marcus Smart is known to be one of the best guard defenders.
Yeah.
Did he win a Defensive Player of the Year recently? I
He's
think
been
so.
in the talks. He's been in the talks.
Anyway, Gabe Vincent's out here dropping 18. Lowry's coming off the bench dropping 15. Duncan's coming off the bench dropping 22. Jimmy Butler's averaging 32. Like, where are the guard defenders? Jalen Brown, you're meant to be a defensive
Yeah.
menace as well.
Yeah.
You've got Brogdon off the bench, who's great defensively. Like, what's going on? Like, who's
Yeah.
who's who's putting a stop to the guards on the Miami Heat? You can't have Strus coming on dropping 18. Like, there's so many players that are coming on and putting up great performances for Miami when their season averages are nothing especially compared to the Boston Celtics, like Derek White, Brogdon, Smart, Brown, like all these sort of players are just so much better than the Heat's depth, and the Heat's bench players are just coming on and absolutely tearing them up. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's Spoelstra's offense, but we'll see. We'll see tomorrow. Hopefully, Celtics can pull it out and make the series a little bit more interesting. On to question 4. This is an interesting one and a little bit of a hot topic. I know you're not a huge fan because of what he's done in the past few years, but where is the best landing spot for Kyrie Irving this offseason, if there is one? If not, should he re-sign with the Mavericks?
Well, I've been pretty out there and saying Mavericks is the worst fit possible for him. So what his contract's up,
It's
is it?
not up, but presuming with how the season went and them trading, they had a great record. I think they were fifth, and then they got Kyrie and they moved all the way to 11th and missed the playoffs altogether with
Yeah.
having a top 3 player arguably in the league.
Yeah.
I presume they will be looking to maybe move him. If
Yeah.
not, do they re-sign him?
Um, well, no, they won't. I don't think they'll re-sign him. I think that's the stupidest decision ever. Where does he fit though? Like, it's a good question. Now, I don't know what you can get for him if he's got, say, one more year on this contract. Who's going to give up that much for a player who could play after season and seems to be really picky if he actually wants to play or not? I'm trying to think of some teams that he could go to. There's not many I think that would suit him or would be happy to stay there. Like maybe, like see, like if you're not like OKC's not going to want him. Um, there's no real contenders that you look at. Like, could he go to the Heat maybe? Like I don't know, but they
Yeah,
probably not
he
not
wouldn't be bad.
not really his type of. I don't
Yeah,
know. I feel like Jimmy would have a lot of say in who comes. Like he wants
yeah,
someone who's playing every game, giving it their heart out. It just doesn't look like Kyrie. Because I'm trying to think if he's going to go somewhere, he's going to want to be, you know, playing, deep into the season. I'm just trying to think of maybe a team like the Timberwolves. They can give up Cat or something, to get him there, and I think he'd kind of like that, just being able to do his own thing. Has just a forward in Edwards who he can, when he gets a bit into trouble, just dish it off to. That'd probably be my top pick. The Timberwolves actually wouldn't be too bad because I don't think they're doing much at the moment with Cat and Edwards. It's just not it. And then obviously he can have the ball in his hands a lot. Edwards can play off the ball a little bit, and then when he has to dish it there, he can do it. But would they give up Cap for Kyrie with 1 year on his contract? I don't know. I probably would if I'm Minnesota. I probably would.
I would like to see him off the Mavericks. I think Luka plays much better when the ball is predominantly in his hands.
Yeah.
I know there was one play where they passed it on a game winner, and I just saw it. I know it was one play, and Kyrie didn't actually play too bad. Like his averages, it's just the team record. It just wasn't meshing. I think it's better when Luka has surrounded by wing shooters and he's got a lob threat. So I would like to see Kyrie move. I think Kyrie does want out. I would like to see Kyrie reunite with LeBron in his final few years in LA, pair up with Davis, run the one. Obviously, D'Lo wasn't playing in the last bit, so I presume Lakers are looking for a point guard. There's been talks with Trae Young, Lillard, Beal, but
Trey Young.
Kyrie would be a pretty great story if he reunites with LeBron and wins a ring in his last few years. I reckon that would be pretty cool. The Clippers could be another one. I mean, they got Westbrook. Not sure if Westbrook's staying on that roster, but Kyrie, Kawhi, and Paul George, if healthy, could be a deadly offensive lineup. Obviously, that would create one of the most non-active teams in the league.
Yeah.
But you know, Bucks would be another good one. You move Drew to the two, Middleton to the
Mm,
three after their disappointing season. You had a bit of firepower to the point guard spot and a closer since Middleton doesn't want to
yeah.
step up and close
Yeah.
anymore,
That's
apparently.
that's a good call. That's probably the best fit.
Yeah, and you give Giannis, another superstar, and it'd be pretty cool. I
They've
think
worked together.
Kyrie could end his career there, and they could probably build a dynasty out of that one as well. So it's not a bad fit, Milwaukee, but that would be my three: Lakers, Clippers, or the Bucks, or the
Yeah.
Wizards if I could pick, because we don't have a point guard. Wouldn't be a bad fit for us. We'll get into questions of the week. Let's see yours.
All right. Now that the Lakers have just done that, this kind of revolves around LeBron as well. Do they attract any free agent interest, going into the off season now?
Yeah,
Or is it a bit kind of like we're waiting for this to end with, the LeBron AD and like, are they good enough to, get another piece and actually win a championship? Because you'd think there's a lot like the Celtics, the Nuggets, a team like the Hawks, the Bucks should be better next year. Like all these teams I'm expecting to improve, whereas LA I think is probably going to get worse. So do they have enough to bring in someone else, like from the free agency?
yeah. I'm not sure with all the cap space, um, if they can,
Well, yeah,
but
let's say they move.
Austin,
Let's say they move some
okay,
pieces.
Austin Reeves, I know is in big trouble. Lakers are in big
Mm,
trouble with Austin Reeves. Sorry, Austin Reeves said he's going to follow the money. He's been mentioning that quite a lot throughout the season. So a team is going to offer Austin Reeves 50 million after his playoff run, and Lakers just cannot afford that. So I think we're going to see Austin Reeves on another team, whether that be a young team coming up, whether that be a sort of playing team, or even a contender that could use him off the bench. I don't think he's going to be on the Lakers next season at all. I think we're going to see a Rui re-signing. I think we're going to maybe see a Vanderbilt re-signing. We always see that the Lakers are, always attracting big free agents, and there's always the possibility of Dame. Can they bring in Durant, all these other players that the fans like to announce in the off season? But I think this is the season where it actually happens. I don't think Trae Young's coming out of the Hawks,
no.
but I do think this is the year that Lillard moves from Portland, whether that be LA or New York, whether that be Milwaukee. I'm not too sure. I think Kyrie has a chance to go, and if neither of them go, I think it's going to be Bradley Beal. Sadly, I think Bradley Beal. It's time. He had a bit of an off season this year, although he was very efficient, and his playmaking stats went up. He just wasn't the closer we needed, and I think they're going to look to build through Kuz, Porzingis in the draft, and kind of see if they can build, a new backcourt. So I think Beal could be the one they bring in to kind of help LeBron get over the line. Beal's a very good player. They're going to need a bit more than that, but I still think a lot of people want to play in LA no matter what. It's just it's a different vibe than a lot of these low market teams. So I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes.
Just
Sure.
quickly off that too, I did see there was some people saying today that if you run the numbers, Wiggins, Paul, and Kaminga for LeBron would work contract wise. What would you think of that?
It would be pretty nuts to see LeBron and Curry team up on Golden State.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it actually almost works better for both teams.
yeah,
Weirdly
Lakers.
enough, there'll be a team. Either one of them will go like, "There's no way in hell," but somehow it actually does kind of look nice.
Yeah, I think LeBron. You don't trade LeBron for anything
You
unless
can't.
you're getting an absurd amount of picks, and I think he's going to leave no matter what. So if he goes to Golden State and Bronny gets drafted to, you know, the Raptors, he's
He'll go
leaving to
there.
the Raptors. So
Yeah, yeah,
that's why I think it's a little bit of it's a difficult thing to talk about because what if Bronny's on the draft board at 12 and you've got the fourth pick and you're like, we get LeBron as well though. It's like
yeah.
it's like a two-in-one package. So is that kind of like a I don't know. It seems a little bit unfair
Well,
if
I
you have
don't.
a
You'd
draft
have
pick.
to think it's not worth it for one season. But I get what you mean. You'd be going
I don't
like,
know if you're still putting up 28 and then you get Bronny as well, it might be a little bit worth it.
well,
So
yeah, true.
we'll see. My question of the week. I want you to get up the 2022 NBA draft. And I want you to tell me which sophomore are you most excited to see next year and who will have the biggest impact on their team.
Well, I think one of the more entertaining people we're yet to see is Chet Holmgren. I think that's how you say his name, actually. But yeah, I was actually playing a bit of my GM the other night. I was like, oh, I'll try rebuild the Thunder. Pretty bored, and yeah, I completely forgot they've got him. You look at it, number 2 pick had a pretty big boom on him coming into the league. Obviously, Banchero playing extremely well. He's very exciting going forward. Honestly, when you look like I wouldn't say anyone's been really bad in the draft. Is it a little bit underwhelming? I think it could be, when you look at the first pick, he was very good. Like you're not disappointed at all. Like, but then you're just looking at a bit of solid, like Jabari Smith, solid, Keegan Murray, solid. Jaden Ivey was injured for most of the season,
A little bit.
little bit. He was probably a little bit of a letdown, like out of the top 5. Dyson Daniels, who I was had a big opinion of going into the league, probably didn't play as well as I thought he would have, but he looks like a player who would get better over time, just kind of watching him. Sochan or Sohan on the Spurs, just solid. Like there's no real standouts other than Benchero, or however you say his name. But yeah, probably Shet coming into this season. He's going to be huge for the Thunder. They've got Jalen Williams. Plays center, quite a small center. This is going to be completely different. You're getting he's quite a decent 3-point shooter, isn't he? For a
Yeah.
big guy.
Yeah.
You're getting a pretty good substitute here. With a bit more height, you can move him to the 4 now, still space the floor. Just gives you so much more options having that big down there. And I think he's kind of weirdly enough, like he's obviously a lot shorter than Wembanyama. But they're kind of the same builds, like kind of have the same play style. Obviously, Shet's nowhere near as good as him, but I think he's kind of just been forgotten about a little bit with this draft coming in. And he's probably not gonna be as good as him or whatever, but they have the same kind of tendencies, I feel like.
Yeah. I'm gonna ride with the chat. Sort
Yes.
of the person I think is going to make the biggest impact, I think, is going to be him. I think Banchero is obviously going to be putting up probably bigger numbers. Obviously, he's the number 1 option on the Magic. And I think Paolo might, ease his way sort of into a um, Tatum career where he's kind of that number 1 small forward. But it's just unlucky that Tatum got drafted into a team that was already very good in the Celtics, where Banchero's gone into a rebuilding Magic. My most exciting player is Jalen Williams from the Thunder. Not Jalen with a Y, Jalen with no Y, the small forward. I think he averaged 14 last year. I think he only started playing well halfway through the season. He ended up being their, 3rd or 4th option. He might have actually been the 3rd option in front of Lou Dort. And I think they started giving Lou Dort bench roles because of this rookie Jalen Williams. So he's a great player. He's got a great shooting form. He's defensive. He takes a lot of shots. He's very confident. And he's got great height for his position. And now they've got Chet coming in. I think they've got the 12th pick. Shea just had a arguably MVP season. Josh Giddey improved drastically. So things are looking very good for the Thunder. And I love the way they play. And J-Dub is a big part of it. And I'm keen for his second year. He's putting up 14, 4, and 3 in his first year. His second year should be great. Another player I'm interested in looking out for is Jaden Ivey. I really like how the Pistons are setting up their future. I like the Bagley acquisition. I like the Wiseman acquisition. I like them drafting Jalen Duren. Wiseman and Duren kind of fighting for minutes, but they both play very similar, both big lob threats, great defenders. They've got Cade who didn't play last year. So Jaden Ivey had to kind of run the team, and they throw him in the deep end, which I like for a rebuilding team. So Ivy, his shooting was a little bit off, and he was very, very inconsistent. I think he missed 1/8 or 2/8 of the season. But I do like Ivy's upside, and I think he's a very athletic player, and I think he's going to coincide with Cade very well. Not sure what they do with the fifth pick. I think they will go after a small forward. They have said Bojan is going to be a big piece of their team as a vet, and he played very well for the Pistons as well. And obviously, they've got Dwayne Casey as the head coach. So I really like where the Pistons are going. So Jaden Ivey's another big one for me. But impact, I'm going to say Ben Caro, but I think Chet is a really good pick for Rookie of the Year next year if he's paying a decent amount. I think he might put
Can
up some
he?
big
I don't
numbers.
know if he can beat.
Will he
Yeah.
outstat Wembanyama on the Spurs with no one else? I'm not too sure. But if Wemby drops with an injury, touch wood,
Mm,
Chet's a great pick. Chet
yeah.
is a great pick, especially
Yeah.
if Scoot goes to a team where Portland and Charlotte, where he's not going to be the main ball handler. Could be a great pick, Chet. But we'll wrap it up there. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We're going to be uploading some of these skits on YouTube, Shorts, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. So make sure you go subscribe, and we'll catch you next week.